Welcome to the Veganuary Podcast, the podcast that helps you to try a vegan diet. It's stuffed full of hints and tips for anyone who wants to eat more plants.
Veganuary 2025 is proudly sponsored by our international sponsor, The Vegetarian Butcher. Check them out, plus details of all our other sponsors in the episode description.
Wendy, it's lovely to be back on the podcast with you. I wondered if you had a most vegan thing or a least vegan thing that's happened to you recently.
Hi, Stu. Yeah, I do have a most vegan thing that's happened to me this week, which is I ate about half a block of tofu like a candy bar last night, raw. I got back from a jog. I was chopping it up for dinner, and I was just so hungry. And ever since I've been vegan, I find that I just love tofu in all its forms, marinated, not marinated, cooked, raw. But I think most people I know would be pretty grossed out by that. So that's my most vegan thing. What about you?
You know, before I went vegan and I used to eat, make a cheese sandwich, and I'd always cut off a bit of extra cheese and just eat that raw. And now I do that with tofu.
Yeah. There was a world where I could not have imagined eating a raw cube of tofu, but what can I say?
100% agree. I don't really know if mine fits into a best or worst vegan, but I've been thinking about my son this term. He's 5 and he started school in September. And this term they've been learning about farm animals and about farms. And they had a visit from a farmer who brought in some animals for them to cuddle and things. And he comes home and he sort of spits facts at me about farmed animals and farming. And it's really hard to know where to place yourself on the line of how much to tell, how much truth to tell him about.
Yeah, that's tricky.
You know what's going to actually happen to that chick you were cuddling. So that's been something I've been dealing with, negotiating as a vegan recently.
Yeah, that sounds like a really hard tightrope to walk.
If you want to tell us the most vegan thing that's happened to you, or some sort of vegan mistake you've made, the least vegan thing that's happened to you, we'd love you to write into us. You can email us to tell us your stories at podcast@veganuary.com. Brings us in quite nicely to the fact that we are recording this special episode for Veganuary's Chicken Week. So every year, Veganuary has a week that we call Choose Chicken Free Week, and we're really using this week to shed light on how chickens are treated in the farming industry, and also hopefully give people tips on how they can not eat chicken and not eat eggs and find alternatives, things like tofu, seitan, tempeh, flax seeds for eggs, and of course meat alternatives. And chickens really are one of the most abused animals on the planet. Over 1 billion chickens are killed for meat each year, and that's just in the UK. And 94% of those chickens will live their lives inside factory farms. And then when we look at eggs, 40 to 45 million male chicks will be killed by the egg industry each year because they're just considered useless because they won't lay eggs themselves. Egg-laying hens will be killed when they're just 18 months old. Chickens who are reared for meat will be killed when they're only 42 days old. And their natural lifespans otherwise would have been about 10 years. And it's just really sad. And I love chickens. I had a visit to a chicken sanctuary last year and got to sing to some chickens, which was lovely. You've spent some time with chickens, presumably, Wendy?
I have. I'm a big chicken fan too. I worked at an animal sanctuary for about 8 years before coming to Veganuary, and I ended up having 3 rescued chickens of my own in my backyard in Echo Park, which is a neighborhood in Los Angeles. And I had a nice big backyard and a big chicken run that I built. And yeah, they were so much fun. People don't realize, I think, how playful chickens are. And, they had the run of the yard. They were always getting into everything. And like the thought of a chicken living its whole life in a little cage, after I've seen just how much energy they have and how much of a range they have, is really, really an awful thought. So yeah, I just adore chickens and think more people should spend time with chickens.
Absolutely. So I thought some good people to speak to for this episode. So we've suggested some different ways you could replace chicken in your diet: tofu, tempeh, seitan, beans, mushrooms, all sorts of different ways. But a really easy and convenient way can be to have a meat substitute. And so I thought it'd be great to speak to a company that produces meat substitutes. So we've invited Dan from This to join us.
Yeah, Dan is here to show us that you don't need to eat a raw block of tofu as a vegan. There are actually lots of tasty protein-rich options out there. This is one of the leading producers of plant-based meat alternatives on the market, and they're also the official sponsor of Veganuary in the UK. Now, I'm in the US, so I have not had the pleasure of trying this yet, but my team talks so highly of your products, so I can't wait to learn more. And Dan is here with us today from the nutrition team at This for a special interview to celebrate Choose Chicken Free Week. Hi, Dan.
Hello, good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Have you spent any time hanging out with chickens, Dan?
Well, we did actually have a chicken growing up. We had a chicken and a duck in the backyard.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, you could say I have.
Lovely. So, Dan, have you got a favourite vegan meal which substitutes chicken?
Yeah, for sure. Chicken is, I'm a fully fledged flexitarian, actually. I'm not a vegan, but I've been consciously reducing my chicken and all meat take for quite a while now. And my go-tos are curries, stir fries, quick midweek meals. That's what our products are great for. Anywhere where you would use chicken, you can find a use for our products.
Amazing. So tell us a bit about this. How did this start? Maybe for our US listeners, you can just tell us a little bit about what your offerings are. And then what's the journey been like for this up to today?
Sure, yeah. So this was founded in 2019 by our founders, Andy and Pete. They set out really to revolutionize the plant-based category. It was a time when the category was booming, but the product quality was pretty low still. So they really set out to up the ante in terms of quality and innovation, which is what we're really known for. Um, they started with a bacon and chicken product back in 2019, and it's really just grown from there. We've covered pretty much all the meat bases now, and we've won loads of awards along the way for those products. And I can actually also tell you about a new product range today because we've just gone live on socials this morning actually about a new range, because our products until now have been branded as This Isn't, obviously because it's a meat substitute, so this isn't bacon, chicken, beef, etc. But today we're launching a brand new range which is This Is, and it's
Mm.
a brand new category of whole food protein. So it's super nutritious, clean label, and it blends our expertise in protein technology along with whole foods. So that's really exciting. It's something I've been heavily involved in for the past 2 years. And that's like the next step for us is branching out and complementing our massive range of plant-based meat alternatives with a new health-oriented, clean eating sort of product. So yeah, that's where we are today.
That sounds awesome. Are those products going into supermarkets?
They certainly are. Yeah, next week, 28th, I believe. You can find out more about them on our socials and all over LinkedIn, etc. I'm sure the founder Andy is raving about them now that he's allowed to. It's a really exciting time.
Great. And where do you fit into this, Dan? What's your role as part of the nutrition team?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, I've been heavily involved in the product development of the This Is Superfoods range that we're launching, and that is my day to day. I'm heavily involved in pretty much everything product development related. I've worked in the plant-based sector for 7 years now. Half of that time has been at this. Previously, I was at a research center in Belgium. And yeah, and my background before that actually was my studies were in health and nutrition, so that sets me up really nicely to, I've got the food technology area, but and also a culinary background, and also the nutrition side of it as well. And we're really scaling up our nutrition focus in recent months and years, because the whole UPF hype has made us question ourselves in a way. But we've come out the other side of that feeling actually better about our products because we've done our due diligence, if you like, and we perform really well on a nutrition from a nutrition standpoint. So it's really about allaying those fears, helping consumers understand our products better, and yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that today, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's so exciting. That product feels incredibly well timed. Like you said, a lot of people are talking about UPFs right now. For our listeners who don't know that acronym, that's ultra processed foods. So there's a lot of discussion about, eating more whole foods, and I can't wait to hear more about this new product. So If someone decides that they want to cut chicken from their diet, how can this help?
Yeah, so chicken is an interesting one, I think, because it's probably for the more health conscious consumer, it's probably the last type of meat they want to reduce or cut out from their diet, I think. Because yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say it's unhealthy because it is. It's a good, lean, healthy protein source. But it's also where we have our product range spans the most, actually. We have 6 or 7 chicken-like products, ranging from plain chicken pieces, which is my favorite, my go-to, although I'm a bit biased because I developed that product. And we've got shawarma pieces, which is kind of just a seasoned version of that. And then we have more hyper realistic thighs and wings, which utilize both our protein expertise, but also our fat technology as well. And we also have a full roast as well for like Sunday roast dinners and stuff. So yeah, we cover most of your chickeny needs.
I mean, the products you mentioned are just so convenient, especially if you're not someone that's a very experienced cook, or you only have a very limited repertoire of meals that you make, like, and lots of people in that position, or if you're like really short on time, like people who have kids but you want to try a plant-based diet. All these things are so convenient to just switching out. You can just so easily make a meal just like you did before with products like those that this make it. I just think it's so great for people that do want to make a switch and start eating less meat. It just makes it really convenient. How plant-based meat alternatives are made is a bit of a mystery, though. And I've always been interested in what the process is. I'm sure it's very complicated, but can you give us a little, in a nutshell, how it works, how you actually create them?
Sure, yeah. So obviously our objective when creating plant-based meat is to mimic meat in its entirety. So we start by looking at the composition and structure, which I don't know if you're aware, but the composition of meat is really quite simple. It's around 60-70% water, 20 to 30% protein, and anywhere from 0 to 20% fat, depending on the type of meat you're eating. And that forms the basis for our product, right? We know that's the structure of meat. So how can we mimic that? We take protein from plants instead, and we mix it with some water and a little bit of oil. Again, the oil will vary depending on the type of product we're trying to create. And that brings succulence and moisture to the product. And then we apply different processing methods. So one example being high pressure cooking. So subjecting that mixture of protein, water, and fat to high pressure and some heat. It's essentially cooking the product, just like you would at home in a high pressure cooker or a steam cooker or something. But we apply it in such a way that it creates this fibrous and firm texture that we know and love in meat. So that's in a nutshell. We use protein that would otherwise go to animal feed, so the likes of soy, fava bean, pea. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. If you want to know more, then please ask.
So we talked a little bit about ultra processed foods because they're said to be bad for our health. And we've all acknowledged there's a lot of chatter about that right now in the media generally. So what would you say to people who claim that it's healthier to eat chicken meat rather than a processed alternative because it's more natural?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, chicken doesn't come under the sort of scrutiny that other meats do, like red and processed meats, um, rightfully or wrongfully so. But ultimately, yes, we should be eating a whole foods diet, predominantly whole foods diet, but that doesn't mean we can't eat some processed foods. And the big issue with the UPF thing is that processed foods vary so greatly in terms of their nutritional value and density. And that's where we excel. Like I said, we've looked at our nutrition in the past few months, and we really perform on all in all areas. We're high in protein. We're at least a source of fiber, which is you can't say the same with meat. And we're always lower in saturated fat. If we have any saturated fat in our product, it's always lower, considerably lower than what you'd find in the meat equivalents. Yeah, and kind of just elaborating what I mean by consuming some processed foods. I think we can consume pretty much everything in moderation. the issues arise when we struggle when people aren't able to moderate. But the 80-20 rule is a good rule to go by. I think a good rule of thumb. Focusing on whole foods and being good 80% of the time, and then indulging the remaining 20% of the time. And but like I say, our products fit into a healthy eating diet 100% because we excel in nutrition, whereas other UPFs, ultra processed foods, and to be honest, the majority are less healthy. There are plenty of healthy options, but a lot of them are unhealthy. And they're the classic, junk foods that we've known about for years. They're high in fat, sugar, salt, and they're regulated as a result of that. And yeah, people will talk a lot about the hyperpalatability of these foods, and that's not what we're about. We're about nutrition, focusing on nutrition at its core.
That's great. I think it's worth just mentioning as well. There's different levels of processing that people might hear about, and processing is actually really important for us to be able to preserve food. Tinning is a form of processing, freezing is a form of processing, and a lot of the time it also makes it safe for us to eat. So people should just be aware of that. The hill that I will die on. People love to criticize vegan diets because supposedly they say it's full of ultra processed food. But a vegan diet doesn't have to be. And as you say, you can do it completely in moderation. If it helps you, it's really good. And the other thing is a non-vegan diet can be completely full of ultra-processed food as well. So, it's worth bearing that in mind. Sometimes it feels like a branch that people use to beat vegans with, which winds me up a little bit. What would you say are the biggest misconceptions about plant-based meat alternatives, Dan?
Yeah, I think probably the UPF thing is our biggest challenge. Convincing consumers that our products are healthy, because of the hype that's been around UPF, and yeah, we've been targeted in a way, I think, in that sense. But we stand by the fact that our products are highly nutritious, and like I say, we've scaled our nutrition team to really look at how we can improve them further. So that might be micronutrient fortification. We already do some of that, but how can we make our product even better to help consumers, make that change and transition from meat to plant-based meat, and then eventually to other different types of plant-based protein. What are the biggest misconceptions? Taste is another big one. The category has grown so much in recent years. Like I say, when our founders Pete and Andy started out in 2019, the category was pretty low in quality. Lots of new products, lots of new brands, but the quality just wasn't there. So we've really led that charge in terms of bringing the category with us and improving it as a whole. So taste and nutrition are the main ones, I think. Yeah.
So obviously, if someone were to choose to eat this instead of eating chicken, they would be helping animals. But are there other benefits to eating this? So you've talked a little bit about the nutritional benefits, but are there other impacts from the environmental side, for example?
Definitely. And again, chicken doesn't get the scrutiny that other meats get in that sense. The environmental impacts. It's often cows and pigs that are talked about most. But chicken is slightly different, I guess, because first of all, it is less damaging from an environmental perspective. But I mean, you touched on it yourself. The factory farming is really unsustainable. And the land use for chicken feed is huge as well. They're fed ingredients that could otherwise be used for human food. Like I said, we use proteins from soy and fava beans, pea, which is what chickens are often fed with. And that makes the whole soy conversation less favorable for us as well, because it's used predominantly in animal feed where it needn't, and that needn't be the case. And so, if everyone could reduce their chicken intake, the impact would be huge on factory farming, on land use as well, and also for health reasons.
Great. So, have you got some good cooking tips for people who are trying a plant-based diet for the first time?
Well, the great thing about our products is that you can cook them pretty much the same way you would meat, and that's what really helps people make that transition. I think it's certainly been the case for me. Um, you can, and they're so versatile and so quick and easy to use. It's perfect for that midweek meal where you need a lean protein source, and particularly our chicken pieces fit the bill for that. They can be just thrown in, quickly fry them off, and thrown into pretty much everything. And that's the same for most of our products, to be honest. They're very quick and easy to use, just like you would with meat.
And what about the new products? Those are also something you can kind of just sub in like for a chicken.
Um, you could do, definitely. It's essentially a lean protein source on the face of it, but there's a lot more to it than that. And the format is more like a tofu. So we're
Okay.
launching a block format and a marinated piece format. So it's the same sort of recipe, but one is diced and marinated. But the main SKU, the main product is a block. So it's a whole foods block. It contains shiitake mushrooms. It's based on fava bean protein, and it contains some seeds as well, just to help with that mouthfeel as well. And nutritionally, it's an absolute powerhouse. It's 18 grams of protein per 100. Um, it's high in fiber, and it's a natural source of iron and omega-3 as well. So it ticks so many boxes, and we can't wait for everyone to try it.
Yeah, really exciting. I feel like everyone's talking about fava beans lately, at least in my world that I operate in. There's so many cool products coming out with fava beans. So yeah, I can't
It's a
wait to
great
try it.
ingredient, fava bean. Yeah, yeah.
So you said earlier that you're flexitarian and you are based in London. Do you have a favorite place to eat out if you're craving a plant-based meal?
Well, that's the challenge of London is there's so many places to try that I don't like to go back to the same place. I like to keep trying new things. That's generally how I go about um, yeah, restaurants. So yeah, I love to try new things all the time, and there's just so many great options in London. It's kind of silly to go back to the same place.
Did this collaborate with restaurants? Do you have people? Do you have restaurants serving this as part of their meals?
We do. We sell into food service, some pub chains in London, and some of the chains in London. So yeah, we can be found in restaurants and pubs and stuff. Yeah.
And what about a favorite food vice? Have you got a super indulgent treat that you like?
I definitely have a sweet tooth. So and probably ice cream would be at the top of the list there in terms of indulgence. Um, and I do, yeah, definitely have a sweet tooth overall. But
What's your go-to flavor?
uh, oh God, I didn't prepare for that.
I love I love a mint choc chip, and I like a pistachio ice cream. When I was a kid, I used to love rum and raisin.
Oh, I'm not sure about
Really?
rum and raisin.
What about you,
White
Wendy?
chocolate. White chocolate would be my go-to. I'm always looking for the white chocolate when I'm on holiday.
That really is a sweet tooth, if you like.
Yeah, it is super indulgent. Yeah, but I balance it out, with everything else I do. It's that 80/20 rule. Um, I generally eat very, very well because I've got the education and experience. So
Yeah, I don't have a favorite flavor per se, but I like ice cream with a lot of texture and a lot of like salty flavors. So right now, the one I really like is a Ben and Jerry's non-dairy called Netflix and Chilled, which
mm.
has like salty pretzel swirls in it. It is absolutely delicious. I don't know if you can get that over there, but
I
look it
think
up.
it is here. I haven't tried.
Yeah, I think it is here. Yeah, it rings a bell. Netflix and chilled for sure. Yeah.
You've unlocked a memory that when I was a kid, we used to have brown bread ice cream, which was ice cream with like bread in it. It was really nice. I guess my mum probably made it. When someone write into podcast@veganuary.com, tell me if you'd eaten brown bread ice cream. So, Dan, where can people find out more about this and see your range of products, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So the website would be a good place to start. It's this.co. It's about as short as a website name you will ever get. And similar for our Instagram, it's this.uk. And you can find us on other socials as well. But yeah, then that's the best place to start.
And I do have one more question for you, Dan, which is, will you be participating in Veganuary this year?
Well, next year, I guess.
Yeah.
I've done it. once or twice. I didn't do it this year, but yeah, I would certainly think about doing it again next year.
Excellent.
Amazing.
I love it, Wendy. Wendy throwing down the gauntlet. Lovely. Thanks for joining us today. It's great to talk to you, Dan. Wendy, how can people contact us?
Well, Stu, they can email us at podcast@veganuary.com. And of course, you'll find Veganuary on all major social media channels.
And people might not know that they can take part in Veganuary outside of January, any time of year. So if people want to do that, how do they go about doing it?
You can sign up anytime by visiting veganuary.com and signing up to receive 31 days of coaching emails. We just ask that you give us your name, country, and email address, and we'll set you up with everything you need to give it a go.
This podcast was recorded at Distorted Podcast Studios and produced by Jim Moore at Bloody Vegan Productions. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and rate us 5 stars.